I think sometimes you got to get like your rocked a few times to really figure out who you are. I've been there. I've been in the Badlands. I've been bottomed out and broken down. And I think a lot of people believe that too, and they get stuck. I feel like there's so many ways that I like wouldn't be here unless my job was to help other people along the way.
What's up, YouTube family? Real quick, if you could just like, comment, subscribe, that helps out the show so much. Now, let's get into it.
The SelfHype Podcast.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Eli Vasquez, and welcome to the SelfHype Podcast. I'm your host, and it's brought to you by Trouble Studios. And this week is going to be phenomenal. If you're lacking motivation, if you're struggling to keep going, dealing with some adversity, and you need a hype homie, we have Madison Ciccone. That is right. She is our guest this week. She's a speaker, coach, and podcast host, fully dedicated in freeing people from the shackles of shame and help them walk confidently into the most badass version of themselves. She's a former party girl turned SoulCycle's top instructor in the country. She's worked with over 500,000 people in her classes, and through her coaching and her podcasting and her social digital content and her raw relatability and sense of comic relief, you're absolutely gonna love her. So let's dive into it. Let's have some fun and let's get it. Madison, hi. Dude.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here, a fellow hype person. I was like, dude.
I'm so excited.
This is so exciting. I was like, okay, this is SelfHype Podcast. And then when you reached out to me, I was like, okay, SoulCycle. Okay, hype homie. Okay, she gets it. Okay, energy. Okay, you're wicked fearless. Okay. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. How you feeling?
Well, my spirit is good. I'm excited to be here. I was stalking you on Instagram before this, so I feel like I'm in really good company, and it's always an honor, a pleasure to jump on and kind of just riff off and tell my story and see if it can resonate with somebody out there, or just land where it needs to, and hopefully kind of, I mean, I feel like the whole reason we do this is to change the trajectory of someone's life out there. So,
yeah, I see already setting the intention. I love that. We're already like, just putting the energy out there. Also, I love like, if you're looking at the video, we're like the polar opposites in terms of like vibes. Like you have like the full white, beautiful decor, and I have this like black, just drab, like, but it's okay. It's all good. It's like,
it's just what your vibe is. It's just what your vibe is, right?
It's equally vibrant, two different colors. So I love it. So I just want to kind of start from the beginning. Like you were a self-proclaimed party girl in Hollywood, which I could really like vibe with because I was quite a party girl myself in Hollywood. So I understand the vibes, but there was such a beautiful, like not only like physical lifestyle, soul cycle, but also emotional, a vibrant transition as well in terms of wanting to help people. So that's quite the shift. So if you could just dive in a little bit in terms of like, where did that shift come from? What was that breaking point? Like, hit us with it, like the inception of all of this.
Yeah. So I actually went to school for entertainment and music business in Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in Rhode Island. And from Nashville, I jumped to LA and I worked in the entertainment industry. So I did anything from, PAing on set to being an executive assistant to some very high level people. And, I did a ton of different jobs like that. And I never really had this like ultimate goal of what I was going to be or what I was going to do. It was like, am I going to run like a record label? Am I going to do this? Am I going to be a Hollywood starlet? Like, what am I going to do? And I think I just got really caught up in like Hollywood culture and assistant culture of like going out, drinking, working 12 to 15 hour shifts with your fellow assistant friends, going out, drinking. It was just this like horrible cyclical pattern you got or at least I got very caught up in. And I did that for years and years and years. And I felt like I was constantly straddling this line between like partying all weekend and also wanting to be like this perfect fitness person and being very in the wellness fitness space. And I feel like that those two like dueling dragons went at it for years and years and years, really until I found later on SoulCycle and just said one day, like, if I'm going to be one of the best at this, the jig is up. I need to completely change my behavior, like what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, how I'm living my life, and kind of hit the restart button in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I think I hit a lot of proverbial rock bottoms, but I think for me, one of my biggest rock bottoms was
What's up, y'all? I know you guys are enjoying the show, but real quick, I just want to talk about the Patreon. Patreon, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and you could even ask a question that gets on the show. It's patreon.com/selfhype. Now, let's get back to it.
I think I hit a lot of proverbial rock bottoms, but I think for me, one of my biggest rock bottoms was I was out in LA, and I was actually thinking about this before we got on this call. I was out drinking with a guy I was dating at the time at the Chateau Marmont, and I think we ended up getting in like an argument on the way home. And so I got in my car to drive home, and of course I was wasted, and that ended poorly for me. And I ended up in Van Nuys County Jail for the weekend. And it's kind of one of those things that's like a young, vibrant female, like, you know, I'm chasing perfectionism. I'm like the good girl. And it's like that was like the moment where the jig was totally up in my life. It was like all the things that you think you are, or you think whatever, just came crashing down. And that was a really big pivotal turn, I think, in my life. There were definitely some other ones along the way of like, wow, you can't just live your life in reckless abandonment and just do whatever the hell you want. You have to really turn it around, or this is where you're going to end up. And I used to joke with some of my friends, it's like actually not that funny, but it's like a lot of us live like that. We don't realize that it's actually killing us. Like we're going to either end up killing someone, killing us, or just ruining our lives, ruining someone else's life. And that was really one of the big moments for me. I mean, there were definitely some other ones along the way, but I think that one was really the one where I was like, hey, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. It's time to change it up.
That if you know about Van Nuys, that out of all the jails to go to, Van Nuys jail. So
if you're from California, and this was kind of funny. So of course, like this is a perfect example. So I get out of jail on Monday. A lot of people don't know this, but if you go to jail on the weekend, like on a Friday night, you don't get out till Monday, like non-negotiable. You know, so I get out of jail on Monday and I'm feeling all sorts of like, what is this? I just like laid on a cot for, I don't know, 72 hours praying like literally the Our Father and the Hail Mary. That's all I could think of. I was like, I'm going to pray. I got to get out of here. Like, God, just get me out of here. Jesus, get me out of here. Like somebody, please, I'll like clean up my acts, whatever. And on Monday, I went to Equinox, West Hollywood, and everybody was like, you look so good. You look so thin. And I was like, damn, yeah, it's called the Van Nuys County Diet, baby. Like, and like nobody got it. And like a few of my like close friends were like, low key, that's funny, but also horrifying. But yeah, it was just like a good example of, it's like those two dragons were always at each other. Like the picture perfect kind of like fitness, being in all like the wellness spaces, and then also being like this party girl, Hollywood assistant, Hollywood Hills, jumping velvet ropes, going to clubs, voyeur, all the bullshit. So it was really wild and crazy, but somehow the ship righted itself along the way.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for diving into that. And I laugh because I'm like, I could totally picture like a bunch of people hearing this at Equinox and be like, is this a new fad? I'm like, should I go to county jail for the weekend? I'm like, I do have a wedding coming up. I should probably head to jail. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely. But I'm like, I could see people be like, really? You know, it's like,
is this a new thing? Yeah,
you're gonna see a course, you know, of someone in a Van Nuys County jail doing push-ups and stuff. Like, you want to lose 5 pounds really fast? Go to a county jail. The stress alone will. But no, thank you for diving into that, because that must have been like frightening, and that is a big, you know, aha moment where it's, and I think it's a lot of people could relate to that too, of just like, oh, like I'm burning the candle at both ends kind of thing, where both lifestyles are in opposition of each other, and am I really excelling the way I need to, and is one even serving me in the right way? Because it's like you can work in those functions, but in what capacity that is, you know, like you said, it's literally will kill you. Like you know, you diving into this lifestyle is unhealthy. And I totally could relate to that. Like being in LA, like I moved to LA when I was like 24. I got into like BuzzFeed. I was a producer. I was getting followers and all that stuff. Not as like Hollywood-esque, but a lot of people are like, hey, you're the guy that ate weird stuff online. You want a drink? And I'm like, yeah, sick. It loves good. Sounds good. But it could really, get you unhealthy and put you in some unhealthy positions. Like, so when did the bike come in? When I feel like I'm writing the script of this like biopic for you, Madison. I'm like,
I love it.
Then I saw the bike and I dusted it off.
I saw the bike. So honestly, like I was telling you, I was working a myriad of jobs. One of my last jobs, I was working at a digital marketing agency down kind of in like the Marina area, Manhattan Beach area, kind of lower down there. And I had a friend of mine, his name was Noah. I don't know where Noah. I think Noah's at Netflix now, but we were obviously West Hollywood and we would commute, whatever, and we would go to SoulCycle and things like that. And I remember I would like save up my money to go once a week. So SoulCycle was like in my stratosphere, but it wasn't necessarily something I did a lot. Like I said, I went to Equinox a lot. I made that kind of like my hub. And that was my community. You find your 3 places, home, work, and your third place. For me, that was that in LA. And it honestly wasn't until I actually got let go from that last job in a round of like layoffs, firing type of thing. And I remember they locked down my desk. I didn't get to say goodbye to any of my friends. I got like paraded. I literally got paraded out of the room. Like I was like actually a criminal. It's so interesting when you got fired. Nobody talks about getting fired from like these really big corporate agencies, things like that. Like it's crazy. And so I remember I went out and I had like a little white Jetta at the time. And I remember I was like crying hysterically in my car, like Kim Kardashian, like ugly cry. And one of my girlfriends at the time kept saying, and a lot of people kept saying, like, I don't know why you don't work in fitness. Like you love it. You go before work, you go after work, you go all weekend. You're part of like the gym crew dance challenges. Like you're always in that community. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. And I went on a bunch of interviews to get a job at Lululemon, like couldn't get a job at Lululemon. Like I just kept going on all these interviews. And finally I was like, maybe this is SoulCycle. And I went on a bunch of interviews there. I shadowed a day in Beverly Hills, didn't get the job. Took another job for like 5 months, middle level marketing agency, got let go from there when it came to November. And I was like, I'm done with LA. I'm done. Like clearly it's not working. Square peg round hole. Like I've had my time. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I went on LinkedIn and I saw that they were hiring for SoulCycle in Boston. And I'm from Rhode Island. So I was like, oh, I'll just go home. I'll be close to my family. It'll be fine. I get a call. It's like, hey, we have actually the position open in LA if you still want it. And I was like, yes, but I was kind of like a little sassy. Like, y'all already put me through 6 or 7 interviews. Like, I'm not doing it again. Like, you either know or you don't. And I ended up getting the job as assistant studio manager in West Hollywood. And that kind of changed the whole trajectory of my life. In no way did I know that I was going to become a SoulCycle instructor. I was like a marketing, social media girly. I was like, oh, okay, I'll get in. Yeah. Then I'll get it to do bi-coastal with New York and LA. It'll be the perfect scenario. I'll get my California. I get my family on the East Coast. Yay. And so I did that for a while, and I would ride the podium for other master instructors, senior instructors, high-level talent. And a lot of people would come up to me and say, you should do this. You should do this. You should do this. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And it never really occurred to me, but I have this kind of thing I talk about, the knock of people realizing your talents and skills before you even see them. Like sometimes other people see something in you that you can't see in yourself. Yeah. And I finally followed that, auditioned, made it to training in New York, got placed in Boston. And that was almost, going on 9+ years ago. So it's so crazy how fast your life can change. Like that saying, you're only one decision away from a whole new life is so freaking true. It's cheesy, but I love cheesy because cheesy works. There's so much validity to it.
You hit on something that's so impactful that I want to highlight is the fact that like, the person that sees value in you that you don't. And I think there's something real with that. And those pivotal moments where you're getting those rejections over and over, you feel like things are not working. Like, is this the breaking point? I'm sure there's a lot of like negative like feelings about yourself during those moments of just like, this place isn't for me. This was my identity for so long. Yeah. And now I might not even be in this city that I thought I had an identity in. And then that reshift of losing such a big part of you and thinking that's all you are is such I'm so impressed by you to be able to be open and dive in. And then you're able to, do that in your most authentic and receive that. Cause I totally agree. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone is like, are you surrounded by those people? Are you around people that see that value in you that you don't? I remember when I was working at BuzzFeed and, I just felt stuck and trapped and I wanted to be a filmmaker and I went to film school, but the internet videos, they gave me a salary and all these other things. So I was like, obviously I'm going to do this. And I was at my lowest low and another intern of mine was like, dude, I see so much in you, and I just did not see it.
And it was an intern. That's like the craziest part too.
Yeah. So like he started before I did. I was like a fellow, still working my way up. He was an intern. He's like, dude, because he got a brand deal for some cell phone. I'm like, dude, if I could do it, you could do it. Come on. I'm like, and it was so cool to receive that. And I think if like you said, if people are listening, find those people that see that value in you that you don't. It's so pivotal for that progression in your life. So that's beautiful. So I'm sorry, were you in Boston? So are you in Boston and now, or are you going back and forth? Or what? So you ended up going to New York and then...
Yeah, I ended up going to Boston. And you want to know the funniest part about that shift was, it's like, I did so much up until that point to stay in LA. Like I clawed my way and I had so much fun. And yes, there were times where I screwed up and there was a lot of like the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. But I mean, I look back and there were just so many experiences that I just have so many transferable skills from it, from like waiting tables to working parties to being a Patron girl to doing music videos, like to working for high level executives. Like it was just insane and awesome. And there's so much there. And what's so crazy about LA is it's such a bear. You know, it's like the best of the best from everywhere. Everybody is the big fish in their hometown. And you go to this like giant pond where everybody's awesome. Everybody's got money. Everybody's got this, everybody's that. Or like, I didn't have money, but I came to realize that like almost everybody around me came from some kind of crazy money. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that you weren't sleeping on a mattress on the floor as an assistant. Got it. You know, just like crazy stuff. Yeah. And what's so wild is I finally found like my stride in LA. Like I loved it. I loved SoulCycle. I worked in Culver City. I'd like go to the West Side after, and I like beach and surf and Malibu. Like I loved, and it was just so interesting when I finally felt secure, when I finally felt grounded, when I finally felt like I had a community and a place, and I finally felt like I quote unquote made it some way in LA. Not in the made it of like, oh, babe, fortune, but just like didn't feel like shit. Like I feel so many of my girlfriends that have moved out there, like it's so hard to find friends and community and whatever. Yeah. When I finally had it, that's when the opportunity came to move. That was like, you know, like the ascension came. Yeah, wow. And then I did it all over again. And I think that I was just so laser focused on the dream of like working for Soul, being on this rocket ship, that I just took the chance of being like pushing my chips to the middle of the table and saying, I'm going to go all in, moving across the country and starting over. I mean, not totally from scratch because I still had family an hour away and like some friends around. But after 6 years of being in LA, living your whole adult life there at that point, it pretty much felt like a do-over.
Wow. Like what do you tell a person that's like thinking about that shift? Because there's so many emotions that are there, so many fears. You said I pushed all the chips in the damn table. So there was a failure that could have happened. There's so many things that could have went wrong. I'm like, there's that little thing in the back of your head that gives all those narratives. So how do you help someone like get like what did you have to tell yourself to like get yourself to that dance, to grab those chips and physically move them to that table and then place that bet? Because that is a heavy one to do.
You know what, Eli? I think about this a lot because...
What's up, y'all? I know you guys are enjoying the show, but real quick, I just want to talk about the Patreon. Patreon, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and you could even ask a question that gets on the show. It's patreon.com/selfhype. Now, let's get back to it.
You know what, Eli? I think about this a lot because I don't know what was in me that just went for it.
Yeah.
Because there's so... And you know what's even more challenging? It's really easy for someone to sit and listen to my story and be like, oh, well, like now she made it in a way, whatever the hell that means. But I think through some kind of like weird way, you always get to where you're supposed to go. Like I believe in God and like I have a very big faith power, but like I feel like you end up where you're supposed to end up. But I've thought about that a lot. Like, where did this blind faith come from to just be like, no, I want this. I know this is a rocket ship company. I want in. I'm willing to push my cute, shabby chic furniture literally to the curb and watch people come pick it up in West Hollywood, which you know is like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
And just say goodbye and close this chapter that I felt like I clawed for so long. And it was just, I don't know. I don't know if I would have that level of blind faith now. Because I was just like, I was younger. I was just in a different position to kind of just go all in. And at that point, having hit so many proverbial like roadblocks or pivots or twists along the way, or, you know, downfalls or dips or really whatever. I think I was just like, I just felt ready. I felt like I knew. And again, I don't know what brought on that level of blind faith or just a level of determination and grit and commitment to just be like, I'm doing this. I think about that often because I'm like, would I still have that now? And I'm not sure, honestly.
I can't help but challenge you with the fact that like it doesn't feel that way. Like you've done it and you have like 9 years of the affirmation where I'm sure like, and we're going to talk about your podcast. We're going to talk about how you give value to people in so many different ways off the bike. You did that, which I'm sure that person like 9 years ago sees you make certain decisions now would be like, oh my gosh, it's like, but I can't help but feel that you have this level of affirmation and confidence in yourself that maybe you didn't have.
I think I do. I talk about confidence a lot, and it's something I get asked to speak on a lot about, whether it's panels or like women, we just had like Women's History Month and empowerment, all these things. I have two lanes of confidence I talk about. There's one confidence where I can sit here and, I've been beating on my craft for years and years and years, that 10,000 hour rule, any kind of skill set or craft that you have really worked and honed in on and become really sharp with, you're going to be confident with because it's kind of like it's muscle memory at this point. You have that innately in you. And then there's another confidence I've been noodling on a lot lately when I've talked, and it's kind of like the opposite. And it's really the undoing of everything you've kind of been told or people's opinions or all this stuff about you. It's all this unediting and unscripting and like undoing to get to your most authentic, grounded self. And I really, truly believe that that only comes with life experience. So it's like there's two different lanes, right? There's this like, obviously, this is the more like, to me, it's more like sport mode. I cheered in college D1 and I was an athlete my whole life. And obviously I'm still some kind of elite athlete out there riding these bikes. So sport is like, true to my heart. So there's that kind of confidence, skill confidence, technical confidence. And then there's this like soul fuel type confidence that's like this groundedness when you see people and they just have that vibe or they just feel so authentic and it's like a presence. It's this like aura or effervescence about somebody like, wow, that person like really knows who they are. Or you'll sometimes be around somebody, you're like, oh, they're so cool. And it's like, they just know thyself on a level where they've kind of like undone all the BS people have put upon them over all these years. And they've gotten back to the root of like who they truly are. And I think those two confidences show up differently in different arenas, but you kind of can learn both along the way.
Yeah. That hits on a lot of different cylinders in terms of like how people could be self-reflective. And it's, I always say too, I'm like, you're enough now. Like there's everyone, you could tell, I think, because I left LA as well. I was 6 years in Los Angeles and it was,
wow, okay. So similar.
I know. That's how I was like, I don't know, make it about me, but I'm like, yes. And I'm like, I agree. But, I think the biggest thing is like, you don't realize how much of a bubble it is. And then once you step out of it, you meet other people who just like, I'm a dentist. Like, I'm not trying to get anything from you. We just both like dodgeball and we're going to drink a beer and we both, you're a dentist, so there's nothing to gain. I'm just like, that's it. And I'm like, and it's like, I forage for mushrooms. I'm like, is that a side gig? Are you making a business? I'm like, no, I just like foraging for mushrooms. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just like a whole new world. But I think the big thing is like, you could see people who just are okay with themselves. And there's such a difference between, and mind you, we're talking about like, you're the hot person in high school, so you move to LA, culture of LA. There's a lot of people that live in LA. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm from here. But it's like that person who has these dreams and insecurities that are along with it, that feel that they're not enough in a space where their identity is this achievement or perfectionism versus I'm a dentist, I'm with my family, I like to forage mushrooms. And you just see them rest their shoulders. And it's like, oh, God, that feels so good. And a lot of the work is, you said you did all the personal wellness and everything else, but the most transformational thing was in a Van Nuys prison cell. So it's like, and that was just you by yourself. That's just you with this. So that's really beautiful that to reaffirm that. I mean, you've been able to just like motivate people and like keep them going in moments of stress and tension, in moments of, I can't do this anymore, Madison. I'm tired. I ate a burrito before this. And I'm like, Like, but you do that in different functions as well, like the podcast and the courses and then and the different spaces that you energy to. But like, how do you get people through that adversity, through that tension, when there is that feeling of like, I guess, limitations or limit?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I had a couple ideas when you were saying that. I was like, I think sometimes you got to get like your shit rocked a few times to really figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of hit those roadblocks and you have to figure it out. And I think goes back to kind of what I was saying about grit and perseverance and learning, what makes you, what you stand on, your morals and your capabilities and the way you operate and really figuring that all out. I think that when it comes to keeping others motivated, or why I think it might come more naturally to me than others and in like a deep grounded sit back into your bones way, is because I've been there. I've been in the Badlands. I've been bottomed out and broken down, and I've believed that like I was dissed or dismissed, or the things I did in my life disqualified me from living the greatest life or a life of my own design or something amazing. And I think a lot of people believe that too, and they get stuck, like they get broken down in the Badlands, as I like to say. And I think my main job here, and like what I believe truly I've been put, it's got to be, because like I feel like there's so many ways that I like wouldn't be here unless my job was to help other people along the way, like to jumpstart their journey. Like I always say, like I think of like a car getting broken down, right? Like in the Badlands. And when I say the Badlands, I want you to picture, like, I always picture the Lion King where the hyenas have eaten everything. And it's like the scary land. It's like, we don't go there, Simba, or whatever. Yeah. And that's where people get stuck, whether it's shame, shame, like, oh my God, I'm so ashamed of what I did, or something that happened to me, or a situation. We have these things that happen to us in our life, and then we believe we're not deserving of an amazing, epic life. And I feel like my job is to hardwire people's hearts and get them back on the road to rediscovery and revival, and figure out, well, what is it that I want, or how do I live that best life? And I think most great coaches will tell you, like, I'm a lot of times not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but it's about having a spiritual running buddy and an accountability person that gets you, that sees you, that says, like, I see you, I know where you've been. I'm not hypothesizing or strategizing or reading this out of a freaking book. Like, I've been there. If I can come back, like, you can come back too. And that's really like what I aim to do, is teach people to be the main character, get in the driver's seat, and be the superhero of their own life, pretty much. And if I can do it, I know you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that normalization of chaos, of hard moments, of difficulties. Like, I think everyone wants to not feel anything negative, but like, that's the growth. Like I like just hearing your story and having those hard moments, like that was the pivotal point to push you to make those shifts and transitions. And it's that's where the growth is. It's like, it's what is the tension? What is those negative emotions? And those negative emotions are so important, right? Because if we don't feel that, if we don't have that adversity, then we don't know how to necessarily push ourselves. Like, how do we know how to grow, or even that there's even a need for growth if there isn't these spaces? So I love that, like, you have so much experience in like this collective group of human beings that like trust in you, and you see the individual in terms of their different points of tension, different points of maybe limitations, different points of question themselves. And you could address that, to them in those ways, which is so fascinating and beautiful.
I think that life is kind of just, it's the resiliency Olympics. I didn't coin that. I got that from somewhere. But it's really just about your bounce back factor. Like, we're all coming back from something. We're all working back from something. It could be something super tragic. It could be like, a calf injury after you ran. Like, we're all dealing with these things that we have to overcome. And I think that's what creates this beautiful life and life's journey. It's really kind of like your comeback story. You're always kind of coming back from something. And I think that's the resiliency of the human spirit and just the journey of life, honestly.
Right. The human spirit. I'm like, it's our function, right? It's like I'm never, like, you get heartbroken, like Esteban cheats on you and you're like, God damn it, Esteban, I'm never gonna love again. that's about to ruin love for me. I'm like, okay, well, you have a heart, right? You're meant to use it. That's the whole point of you being alive and as a human being. So in that soul's journey, that resiliency, right? It's like, that's the point, is those low moments, are those stresses, are those hard like that's why we're here. And it is a scary thought to not necessarily embrace it, but to know that it will come. But that's the point of the journey. It's for you in a way, right? Like, it's for you to learn and digest and be better.
Yeah. And I think that's really challenging because I think in the world we live in, like everything social media, how does it look? There's this very voyeuristic way in everybody's lives, and it's all about the highlight reel and all that stuff. But I think where people get tripped up is they think that positive people, or these people like myself or whoever out there that they look up to, like, don't feel these feelings. It's like, no, I feel these feelings. It's just like I've equipped myself with different tips and tricks and tools so that I don't stay there. Like, it's okay to go there. We all go there. It's just like you can't stay there. And your feelings are not real. Like, they're not who you are. They don't define you. They don't really do much of anything. They're just kind of like things. I think that's a huge thing. My friend, Coach Dar, she is a really big mental agility coach in Arizona. She has a book called The Art of Bouncing Back. I believe that's her book. Yeah, the Art of Bouncing Back. And one of her first principles is like, embrace the suck. And I think that's one thing like we don't want to do. Like, everybody's like, ah. And I think that's so much a part of that comeback, that superhero story. Like, you do get knocked down. You are going to get hurt. If I use hurt because we just had the Boston Marathon, and it's like, crazy here when I think of like runners and sport. We're all going to have these things in our life, but then it's like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I get back? And that get back story is really what it's all about.
Yeah, that get back is key. Yeah, that's the hard thing is in those low moments, it's like, because I always try to think of it for myself of like, and I try to be candid as well. It's like, I think if you're doing this work, you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like. You know what it feels like to feel like nothing. You know what it feels like to question yourself. You know what it feels like, those negative emotions. You don't want other people to go through it. But I can't help but feel when you have a group of people and they have this limiting belief that we're talking about, or this sucky moment, and they're looking at someone next to them and they're just crushing it, and it's like, well, this is just reaffirming that I'm less than. So this comparison, and it's with social media, like you just said earlier, it's such a product of that. We're in such a society of comparison. Like, how do you mediate that with people? Like, how do you have them focus on themselves if they can, or what tips do you give them for that?
So I have a couple things. I mean, what comes to mind right now is run your own race.
What's up, y'all? I know you guys are enjoying the show, but real quick, I just want to talk about the Patreon. Patreon, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and you could even ask a question that gets on the show. It's patreon.com/selfhype. Now, let's get back to it.
So I have a couple things. I mean, what comes to mind right now is run your own race. Yeah. That has always been a little mantra that I've worked with. It was something that was said to me when I was in SoulCycle training. It wasn't run your own race, but it was stay in your own lane. Mm-hmm. And you hear these little things and you're like, whatever. And then you start to understand what that means. Yeah. When I think about comparison, I mean, it's rampant. How could it not be? I think it's great to look around and glance from side to side to kind of see what's going on, or to keep your creative juices flowing. And a lot of times it's cool to look at maybe what someone else is doing, like how are they doing that, whatever. But I think when it starts to dip into you doubting what you're doing, it becomes the problem. And that's where I talk about, like, with social media, like, instead of always consuming, get to creating. And I have a timer on my phone that's like always within 30 minutes to a half an hour, where it's like, if I haven't created what I needed to create by then that's like a signal that I'm consuming. Ooh. And that's not why I'm here. Like, I'm here to create. I'm here to be an artist. I'm here to put it out. I'm here to do. I'm not here to consume in that way. Yeah, that's one thing. I always talk about this, and I'll just use SoulCycle because it's like my own story that helps me. I remember one time, this was a few years ago, probably before COVID, we redesigned our studios a little bit, but we used to have these pictures on the wall, and it was all these articles that SoulCycle has ever been written up in, like hundreds of articles. And I was reading this one article, I think it was in the New Yorker, but it talked about, our old CEO was talking about how do we find talent? How do we find this like top tier talent for SoulCycle? and it talked about finding people's X factor. And now I'm a huge DC Marvel comic. I'm a huge more Marvel than anything else. And for whatever reason, I was like, oh, it's kind of like being a superhero. It's kind of like being part of the X-Men team, because like X Factor, X-Men. Yeah. But then I took it to the 2.0 of like Marvel, right? And I talked to everybody about this. Like, when I think about my favorite Marvel movies, I don't ever like pit my characters against one another. I love every single character pretty evenly. Like, yeah, if I had to pick a favorite, like maybe I could, but then I'd be like, oh yeah, but like, what about him? And like, they have this and like, she has that. And like, oh my gosh. And it's so hard. It's almost like Baskin Robbins. Like, there's 31 flavors of awesome. And like, what am I going to choose? Right? It's like sensory overload. And I feel like if people realize that about themselves, what their superpowers are, the way they tell their story, what they bring to the table, and you focus on that, it's always going to elevate you to a different point. Because I always say, when you're in comparison or you're trying to be like somebody else, one, it's like you can only ever be second best at that. And two, it's like that role already exists. So you can't be that person. Like, we don't need another Iron Man. We don't need another Captain America. We need you. Whatever you bring to the table, your voice, your story, how you tell it. And the thing is, too, is someone else out there is going to need that too, exactly how you do it. And I know that's so cliche, but it's just, I feel like it's tale as old as time.
Oh, yeah. It's so real, though. Like, you're right. It's like, be yourself. Oh, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, but also like, what's the alternative? Oh no, be someone you're not, and then have this internal conflict and feel like a fake and whatever. Like that's what drives me nuts. I'm like, I like that you hit on that, because it is. It's like you got to own what qualities you have, and in terms of a superpower too. It made me think of, like, you know, my people that love too quickly, like they keep their heart on their sleeve or something like that. I'm like, that could be destructive, but that's a superpower. Like, some people can't open up at all.
Yeah.
Right? But what are you doing to harness that power, master that power? Like the superhero movie, right? The first movie, they blow up the damn city because they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know. They got the superpower, like, oh my God. And then like Hulk is destroying the whole damn city. And then like the second movie, okay, he figured it out. He's mastering. Now he's fighting the bad guys. But it took that transition time to figure that out. So I love that you're hitting on the fact that we just got to own it and love it and embrace it, and it's necessary, and it's supposed to be different. I even when starting my like SelfHype brand and everything, I was just like, well, I see Jay Shetty and I see Lewis Howes and I see other, and I'm like, I should embody this. And I'm like, wait, no, I make fart jokes and I'm from like Southside Chicago. It's gonna be very different. So you kind of got to own it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's real.
But it's like someone out there needs you. They need the, like, literally the intonation in your voice, the joke you crack, like whatever it is. That's what makes somebody kind of create that level of, I call it like the Raven fandom, or I used to call it like Legally Blonde, like the faux fur panty effect. Do you remember in the movie where they like do it and like they create a faux fur panties? Anyway, what I mean by that is when you are so real and you are just like truly, you show up fully as yourself and you're not trying to be anybody else, and you're just being you and telling your story, and that's the way it is. You create a level of know, like, and trust. And when people know you and like you and truly trust you, that's when you just create this different level of community around you. And that communal factor is like what I allude back to, like the faux fur panty effect. It's like, then whatever you do, people are along for the ride because they trust you. So it's like you could start in one industry and you could change. And it's like, well, we trust you throughout that because your red thread is I connect with you on these things because you're so real and you get me, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's like these people will follow you no matter where you go because you've just won them over with like a deeper, real, authentic connection. And that really can only be built through trust, that like, I see you, I hear you, I know you, I got you.
It's like, I know everyone's like, but if you think this sounds cheesy, it's real as hell. This is because people
it works. It's like, it does. And listen, I'm 35. So if you were saying, if I was listening to this at 24, I'd be like, go screw. Like, go screw. Like I did with my gratitude practice. Tony Robbins had it. I don't need that. All these people I looked up to had a gratitude practice. I don't need that. I'm better than that. And then I left a business event and I was given a journal and I was like, I'm going to commit to this. And then 3 years later, that journal went out of print and I myself said, what am I going to do? This is like my baby blanket the last 3 years, kept me on track. Done every day I get up and I do that. And I was like, okay, I'll make my own. Like you just figure it out.
Yeah.
I think it's just insane how it all happens. But again, I think there's just, you alluded to Lewis Howes, like the school of life type of thing.
Yeah.
There is so much that you just learn along the way. And I think that's one thing I find really just so kind of heartbreaking because I get a lot of younger women that will reach out to me and want to know about like relationship advice and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I think back to like, you've got to get your shit rocked. Like you're going to have all these things happen to you. And like through the process, you're going to get to where you need to be. Yeah. And then I think my biggest piece of advice is don't always try to be chasing the next thing. Like have fun while you're also in the process, which I know is a little bit challenging to hear. If you don't, you get to a point in your life, and this has definitely happened to me, where you get all the things. You get all the titles, you get all the accolades, you buy yourself, the $10,000 fucking cloud couch, and you stand in your brand new amazing condo and you're like, I thought I was going to feel something. And you don't. And then you're like, I've been chasing this holographic carrot that doesn't exist. And it can only that chase, it will just eat you alive and will leave you miserable. So then you got to go find joy throughout the process. And I think that's like the circle of life moment as you get older.
Thank you for giving us that real. Like that's, it's important to receive that. It's so crucial to, because that's truly what it is. I mean, we always think we're like, oh, the next thing, then I'll be happy. The next thing I'll be happy. The next thing will be happy. And then you sit with all this stuff and then it's not the case. I mean, you hit on something called like with community and I want to hit on this community because you have a beautiful one. And you're able, we talked about you getting on the bike, but you really even took it further than that. This really is beautiful to see in terms of all these avenues. Your social is freaking dope. Let us into that community. Like, what is the community all about, Madison? Like, what's the dealio with it?
What's the deal? Well, I think I built a lot of my community at SoulCycle, and I did really build it through social media. I remember I wasn't like the fastest. I didn't feel like I had the best whatever. This came out of self-doubt, really. Yeah. I was like, well, I'm going to be A+ at social media. I'm going to be A+ at creating relationships with people. I'm going to know everything about them. I'm going to know when their birthday is. I'm going to know what's going on in their life. I'm going to know about the jobs they're applying to. And I really get to know my people. Yeah. And I think that one, again, I see you is so, so crucial. Mm-hmm. That know, like, and trust. And then I think it's really about just bringing more people on and elevating, and that rising tide lifts all ships. And this notion or this essence of like, let's lock arms and run together. That's what I allude to when I talk about the spiritual running buddies. Mm-hmm. But I mean, what it's about, I think it's really about finding that next best version of yourself. I mean, we're all striving for something more, and we believe we're meant for more, I hope, in this world. And I really think that I just help people remember that day in and day out, whether it's on the bike or beyond. And I know you talked a little bit about my community beyond the bike. I think that I was kind of thrown the curveball when I could no longer ride in Boston. It was years or like a year. And then, it was, the whole industry was taken out. And I was like, well, how do I keep serving and inspiring without the bike? And then that's when all the different arms of my business and my coaching and everything else started to develop. But it was, again, from that, well, how do I keep serving, inspire? Like, I know I'm the voice and I have the message, and I'm like the vessel for this greatness and to help people. And even though I can't ride this bike and have this modality, what can I do? And I think something truly special still only happens within the four walls of SoulCycle, because it has to do with your brain-body connection and getting lost in the music. I call it lost in the sauce. And it's really just when the music kind of takes you away. And that's really what I think everybody's trying to do, is tune out the noise and turn up their heart and quiet that chatter. And I think I allow the space for that in the studio. And then beyond that, I help people figure out that chatter and how do we manage it? How do we make it more manageable? And then how do we level up from here? And that's really what it's all built on.
So beautiful. I love your drive. God, I love the drive was directed towards, turning up in Hollywood and crushing it, which you did. I mean, it's not easy to even live a life in LA, but you transferred this passion and this drive and these skills, like that superpowers, in a direction that is ultimately not only serving you, I'm sure, in such a beautiful way, but that's benefiting so many other people, which is so fantastic to see too. I'm going to ask where we could support you and follow you in these streets. But the one question I got to ask before we dive into all that, who's your favorite superhero? Marvel favorite superhero? I know you say you like all of them, but okay, favorite. Okay, we'll do top 3 if the favorite's too hard.
I mean, I love Tony Stark.
Okay. Iron Man.
I'm an Iron Man girl. I think next would be Black Widow because she's so badass. And I love Rocket. He's another one of my favorites. And Groot. I have a baby Groot somewhere in here.
Baby Groot. And just because he's cute. Yeah, it's
that's literally just because of the opening scene where they're in the second movie where they're fighting that galactic rainbow guy. And he's ding, ding, ding. I actually okay. So another quick tip, and then you can I'll plug myself, but music is huge. That was a point right there. When I'm having a shitty day or something really crappy is happening, I've done that with my husband before. I'll be joking, something will happen and I'll walk out of the bedroom to that, what is it? Electric light orchestra. That's dun, 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 dun. It's sun is shining, whatever the song is.
The song. Sun is shining. Yeah, no, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Or boom, boom, boom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, create a pump up playlist for yourself. That's one of the easiest things. I have one in mind that's El Confidant or something. And it's all songs that make me feel like a bad bitch. And then I go out there and do the damn thing. There's so many free, amazing tools at our fingertips. We just don't think to use them. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that last tip. I know I got to
little drops.
I got to make a new playlist. I know. I just got the baby making mix from college. So I got to make some playlists and stuff. No, I was kidding.
I mean, that was good, but now you need another one.
I got to update it. Yeah, I have too much T-Pain on that. I got to update it.
Oh my God, I love T-Pain though. Come on. What?
Wisconsin? Seriously? Who freaking tries to ride
2008 Spring Break was the best ever.
Oh,
seriously, if I throw it back to a 2008 playlist, people go bananas. If I open with that song, it's baby girl, what's your name? People literally unclip, throw their shoes on the floor, shaking.
Oh my God, the turn up is real every single time. Madison, you are freaking dope. And I thank you so much for being in my space. How
can everybody follow me?
Follow you, support you. What are you up to?
So kind. All right. So honestly, I'm in the middle of a pretty big rebrand right now.
Okay.
And so literally up until Super Bowl Sunday, my Instagram was Mads Tads, which was always my name in high school. It was a nickname because my last name is Ciccone, like Madonna. Yeah. So I could never get my handles or anything. So now I finally got the handle. I don't know how it happened. I just checked it randomly. I looked over at Scott while we were watching the Super Bowl. I was like, oh, switch it up and switch it. He's like, yeah, don't do it. What if something goes wrong? And I did it. So at Madison Ciccone, MadisonCiccone. And that's really it goes down in the DM. That's where everything is. I have freebies on there, my links. You can find my podcast there, my gratitude practice. You can find literally everything I do there. Of course, MadisonCiccone.com, etc. I'm on TikTok still as Mads Tads, but I'm really, I'm trying to do it. So that's all the places you can find me, but usually Instagram. Amazing. LinkedIn, I love finding out what people do for work. It's watching a dog walk on its hind legs and Mean Girls, that line. So you can LinkedIn me. I love that. Those are all find me in the streets. If you're in Boston, randomly at SoulCycle, can take my class.
There you go.
All that.
Oh my God, amazing. So many ways to connect, so many ways to benefit. Congratulations on the handle. That's a big deal.
Thank you. I know it was a big deal. Yeah. I was wow.
That's huge. But again, thank you so much for being in this space. I love that you had the audacity to take that big step and you continue to do so, and so many people benefit from it. And you're a badass. You're freaking out.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
I'm updating my playlist as we speak. So there we go. Thank you so much, Madison. What is up, y'all? Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Thank you to Madison for being a part of it. If you want to learn more about her, SoulCycle classes, content, link in the show notes. And if you want to be a part of the Patreon, join it. Enjoy it. Let's spend some time together. You can ask me questions. I have a 3-day self-love coaching challenge for you, waiting for you. You're like, Eli, I love this podcast. It's amazing. I want to support you and receive a bunch of sweet benefits. And also, we have an exclusive with Madison as well, of how to stay motivated in moments of adversity. So if you guys want to check that out, link in the bio for the Patreon, and I will see you next week.
The SelfHype Podcast.